All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Kyle Kemper, and today I'm here with Addison Cameron-Huff, a crypto OG, lawyer, a brilliant thinker. And we've been discussing, the challenges of our time, but also the great opportunities of our time. One of my favorite expressions is to criticize by creating. And I think if we just focus on like the bad news all the time, then you kind of get sucked into that mind space. Whereas if we understand the challenges and the limiting factors and we start focusing forward on what can be done, there's a great opportunity to rethink systems and create real change. So Addison, how are you doing, bro? How are you feeling? It's good.
Pretty good. There's problems. But as you said, like focus on what might actually make a difference, right? And I think it's really good that that's your subject here, because I think far too many people, it's just easy to criticize something, oh, that's not going to work, or you're a bad person or something, to dismiss it, right? Or like, oh, you're not the kind of person who good ideas come from. You see this kind of stuff all over the place. None of this is productive. Right? Like good ideas come from all corners. And right now is not the best time things will ever be. Things can be improved. I'd like to.
Right.
Anybody
time
who's
is
not
always now.
Focusing on doing that. Yeah. And it's so easy to get sucked into like personal battles with things, but things are almost never that person's fault. They're just the person in front of you, right? Like they're a part of a whole system that none of us built or played any role in, right? We come into this, here's your spot in it. The people around you are in their spots. They didn't design that either, right? And you can end up fighting with those people over things like politics and whatever created by other people, but it's way better. Think about what would make a difference. What would actually be that structural change to get there?
Indeed. And when people, when you get triggered and you get angry because of somebody else's actions, in a sense, you're kind of giving them your power. Like they're kind of in control of you if you let that happen. So it's okay to disagree and have opinions, but getting really triggered and like getting sucked into a wormhole based on other people's words, is something to be wary of. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to talk with you about, because it is the future of governance systems. Now, we've both been in the crypto industry for coming near a decade now, and looking at
that's where my hair went.
And finding ourselves right now where we are. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people are disenfranchised with the system. In the last election, there was a 65% voter turnout. The Liberal Party won a minority government with 32% of the vote of all the voters, and then only 65% of eligible voters. So in reality, they only captured
and even less of the population. A whole bunch of people aren't eligible to vote too.
Indeed, there's many people in Canada who call Canada home that don't have the right to vote and participate, which is another whole question. But the reality is 22% of Canadians actually, or eligible Canadians, actually check the Liberal box. And now the Liberals are making decisions like spending $2.5 billion on rapid tests is one of their latest little things that they want to do, or imposing all this crazy these crazy mandates, medical tyranny, whatever we want to describe it. But they're pushing a really kind of limiting agenda that personally, I don't feel it represents the view of the majority of Canadians, and it's being pushed on them and propagated on them. So, you wrote a blog post. You want to talk a little bit about your blog post exploring, some of the challenges of our existing system, and again, speaking to opportunities. What can we make happen?
Yeah, sure. It is a really great coincidence. We were talking earlier about this, about bringing more people into these systems, right? Because even when you're talking about 22% of people, yeah, that's just your vote. And then you vote for a representative. We're talking a few hundred people at each level of government. And then those representatives go off and do things. Sure, they're supported by a big bureaucracy, but no matter what, you're talking about a tiny number of people. But that's just in the political realm. We've got organizations all over the country doing every number of things. Local sports stuff, community fairs, all the way to even riding associations for politics. There are so many associations of people that aren't incorporated. They're not a nonprofit. They're the hidden social structure of Canada. It's just people coming together and doing stuff. And there's so much of a focus on business and government in Canada that people lose sight of who's really doing the things they like in their lives. And like, and this goes into everywhere, even in hospitals. Years ago, I did some work for a medical billing company where doctors form their own unregistered associations as well to do shared billing, where they hire someone to input the billing codes for them just to make it easier, pay that person some money. They do it on 20 or 30 doctors at a time, grouping together. Tons of things are like this, and it's how real things happen right now, but people don't recognize that. People don't recognize their own role as individuals in being able to make the society they want to live in, and how much people love those things.
Indeed. And one of the like the fundamental assumptions that I think a lot of like people like believe is that the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. And I feel like that doesn't ring so true anymore. And
try going to a government office, see if they let you in. You'll find out actually they're a different group in society.
I mean, it shows even like, having thousands and hundreds of thousands of people coming together with a clear message saying, we just want to be heard and we want to talk. And then nobody's willing to talk, or like, the official representatives aren't willing to talk. That doesn't seem like, an open, accessible government. When certain topics are deemed unacceptable, that seems like, totalitarianism and authoritarianism. They trying to impose a certain narrative agenda versus free and open discourse in the true north, strong and free. So I saw this Jordan Peterson made a tweet commenting on Aaron O'Toole doing something or whatever, and Jerry Butts replied to him saying, put step up to the plate, put your name on a lawn sign, and like enter the fray, like join an election. And to me that's a little bit odd because I mean, Jordan Peterson has an enormous following and he has some very good views, and I think like him going to a specific regional district in Canada and opening a campaign office and getting lawn signs made to be prepared for the next time we call an election or an election gets called, and to be ready for that so he can try and like rally the votes of that specific community when Canadians from coast to coast support Jordan and his views, and I think would see him as an excellent proxy for voting on certain issues that they believe that Jordan it would be a good kind of representative or a steward on issues. And this is what I believe is the future of kind of governance, is this idea about like a delegative kind of democracy or a direct democracy where Canadians from coast to coast have an opportunity to participate in the votes. The reason why we have elected representatives was because we had a governance system that was designed in a pre-internet, pre-telephone time when you had a giant nation of Canada. Yeah, pre-electricity time. So you needed to bring together people representing the various areas of Canada to represent, the interests of those geographical regions in the capital. They would come in for like 6 months, represent, their points and stand up for their constituents, and then they would go back. And like, this was an excellent solution at the time. Now, fast forward to 2022, where we have phones and wireless, internet. We are hyper connected. You can send a message from St. John's, Newfoundland to Pheno BC in milliseconds. Like the environment has changed. And should we not consider a more appropriate way to have governance at a national level, at a provincial level take place than utilizing, a system that's 150 years old and older? What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I think you could have written the first part of my blog post. And the stuff you're talking about, I mean, first, one criticism of something you said there, of the we. Like, the way the government works is not a we. There's no we. There's different groups. You can see it in their lawsuits. You can see it in how things are structured, right? And it's incredibly clear over the last couple of years that we're not all in this together. And there really are different groups in society, these interest groups, right? And I'm not a social studies professor. There's lots of books and stuff on that. But I think it's important for people to start thinking, actually, it's not a we. That's not how representative democracy works. In representative democracy, you gave the positive story of representative democracy. That's like the story people tell. Like, oh, it's because it wasn't possible for people to participate. But that's not true. There have been tons of direct democracies. And a number of First Nations communities in Canada and abroad, Chiapas, Mexico, there's plenty of examples of other systems that are direct democracies, as well as famous ones in the past. Now, like, the representative democracy system is not the only way. And I don't think it's even the best form of democracy. And the people who put that system into place, they didn't put it into place because it was more convenient. They put it into place because they didn't believe that regular people should have any say. And they didn't. Like, at the time that these systems were developed, most people weren't allowed to vote. It wasn't until well into the 20th century that women were even allowed to vote in Canada. And people thought that was right. And there's a lot of problems with this idea.
Right. And I think right now amongst our ruling political class that they believe that, Canadians
tons of people think this. Like, I could tell you tons of very well-educated
I think many people, they really believe that, like, the path they're on, this great reset, globalist kind of path, is the best course of action. Like, despite the fact that, it involves, fundamentally shredding our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and, the tenets of individualism and self-sovereignty.
I think most people don't even have that far plan thinking ahead. They just don't think that regular people have much to contribute. They don't think they should really have a say. And you see this in the rise of experts and their role in government and in the legal system too. Like, if we fast forwarded to when Canada started and for many years afterwards, there weren't administrative boards of experts who decided things. Instead, you have a problem, you go to court, or your representative does it, right? And then things have developed over time where there's all these expert groups and they will decide your dispute for you, of people who aren't judges. And we've evolved into this modern administrative state where experts play an enormous role. And there's a place for experts, but I think we've gone too far down this path, and this idea that regular Canadians don't have much to say. And people think, oh, well, I don't have anything to say, so there's no need for me to have a say or to be a part of something. But this is a really dangerous idea. And why? Why would we support a system based around excluding people, which is where representative democracy really came from? Concerns that, frankly, poor people would actually end up taking from the rich people. Like, rich people really set these systems up, right? Like, all the people who were the representatives and everyone who supported making the system, their real fear was that the masses would somehow gain control. You see it all the time today, the same debate. It's been going on for hundreds of years, right? But it's not true anymore. Canadians are really educated. Canada has a super high literacy rate. Any kind of concerns in the 1700s that the little people might make the wrong choices, it's ridiculous. In a highly educated, prosperous, modern country with information at your fingertips, like, is this system functioning to protect people and from what, right? Or is it functioning to make rules that are better? Are people even getting the rules they want out of these representatives?
And to protect itself too, in a sense as well. After you saying all that, I have goosebumps because we have the tools now. We have the technology to really, like think about, new systems. Now, when it comes to like the idea of experts, like, voting on certain things, I mean, I think that works in many different cases. Like, if you are, I don't know, let's say you're like, a certified engineer and you have a certification, you went through something very specific on that, and there's a vote that really requires, or like, there's, let's call it a vote that really like, it shouldn't be open necessarily to others who don't have that certification, then like, there can be membership groups. Like that's basically the way,
okay,
like any
this is a really good criticism, because of course, tons of things can't be decided by votes. Like there must be a bureaucracy that takes care of things. You can't have everyone voting on every petty detail of everything under the sun, right? People have to make decisions. It has to be votes at a certain abstract level, like high enough up. You're not overwhelming people with votes, but I think we could do better than a vote every 4 years. And also, those votes aren't binding. That's the kind of funny thing about how political parties have taken over this idea of representatives, right? And you vote on this like vague platform, and then once they get in power, they're like, wow, the situation's changed, so now it's different. Like you don't even get to vote on those platforms.
And that right there is the crux of a broken, toxic system where there is no accountability in the elected representatives. They can campaign on certain promises or platforms or policies, but once in office, there is no real accountability towards staying, like, towards fulfilling those promises or that agenda. Instead, if they subvert,
they're not experts. They're not experts at this. They have no training in how you make laws, right? They're not actually experts at laws.
No, they are experts. Indeed, you're spot on, and they've become experts at being politicians. Many of them. They're experts at answering a question without answering a question. And it's become,
that's just wasting people's time, right? Like, this is modern Canada. There's a lot of big challenges. We can't have people just wasting their time blustering on questions like that, right? Like, just move on.
And we have really big questions too. Like we have so much, again, there's a lot of challenges in the world, in Canada, in the world, but there's also incredible opportunity, and there's amazing ideas, and there's brilliant creators and innovators who are looking to solve things in an open manner, in an inclusive manner. They just want to have an opportunity to have these things discussed. I like Switzerland and their setup because they have biannual, I think it's biannual, like twice a year, they have an election on referendums. So as a Swiss citizen, you can go out and get 100,000 signatures on paper right now. And if you achieve that number, the whole country will then vote on it. And you, as the referendum creator, will be able to position why and be able to state very clearly why you are supporting this position. And then the government has to create the one pager saying why this is a bad position, why you should support the status quo. And every person in Switzerland gets a book that outlines the two positions. And then they have the opportunity to go to the ballot box and make their check on that referendum. And if the referendum succeeds, it passes as legislation. So, this is direct democracy. So if 100% of Canadians or 90% of Canadians believe that, for example, income tax should be eliminated in favor of, an alternative solution, then, that can be passed by the will of Canadians. But in our current system, there's no way that debate even gets started or discussed, at the parliamentarian level, because this is one of their control mechanisms, in my opinion.
I love your idea, and that actually is the main subject of my blog post. I think it's actually the answer to the environmental crisis as well in Canada, which we can get into in a minute if you want to chat. But what you're talking about too, it exists in California. It's not a disaster. California is not the worst place in the world, right? Like it's one of the richest places in the world that people flock to. Yeah, they're in the news a lot for their problems, but objectively, extremely successful place in the world. right? There's a reason why all these tech companies are located there. And the people who say otherwise, like, that's not true. There's just a lot of things going on there, right? They have direct votes on things. It's not a disaster. It works. I think it would take quite a while for Canadians to have a culture of thinking for themselves and of having an opinion and recognizing that they have value, and also educating people on tools for critically evaluating things as well. And I think that's the criticism people have, is they say, oh, well, you get rid of politicians and it'll just be a rabble saying, I want taxes set to zero. Like, that's not realistic, because no one would suddenly implement direct democracy and not have this transition and people taking responsibility like that, right? And yeah, there'd be some time there of people learning this culture, and maybe it would be a rocky transition where people might vote for things that might not work out so well, right? Like,
Indeed,
okay.
It doesn't mean we need to go. It doesn't mean it needs to be like, okay, this one off, this one on. Like, that's just not the way.
But it's hardly a utopia right now.
Pardon me?
Hardly a utopia right now.
No, exactly.
There's tons of problems with the current system. Would there be problems with direct democracy? Yeah, sure. Everything.
And with intelligent design and like open discussion about the design, and like understanding what our ideal outcomes are, and like what the purpose is at a high level, and then understanding what our ideal outcomes for a system kind of look like, then you can kind of issue the challenge to the builders and the developers and the creators towards, it's like in the existing system, we use RFPs. So like the Canadian government like hired IBM based on an RFP to build a new payroll system called, Phoenix. It was a total disaster. And the cost overruns on the project itself were enormous. And then there were issues with it. But one of the root challenges, because they gave all the all the technical risk and all the execution risk on IBM to deliver this system, versus saying, look, we're looking for a system that's going to be able to do this, and this. And if any system comes out, if any system is presented to us that does this, meets all of these check marks, basically a bounty, then it would get the contract. So you eliminate the execution risk, you provide incentive towards builders to create, because, hey, we can build a new system for the government payroll system that's hyper effective. I mean, you sick like some of the real innovators to build that. I'm not
sure they could, because actually the Phoenix system is filled with 10 billion exceptions because of the way the federal government works. That's why it doesn't work, because they've created a billion rules about how you pay people and a whole bunch of exceptions. And this is a major problem with government services. Yeah. You'd actually want to simplify the way it works so that you could do what you're talking about. And simplifying things and providing transparency is necessary for integrating what you're talking about. Because what you're talking about is how you do things right. That's how startups work. That's how small organizations work. That's how large companies work even sometimes too. And it's where everything's going. We're going to a connected world where it's not all Canadian. It's everywhere. That's how it currently works. Look at the items in the grocery store. Look at the work you do. It's global, right? If we want to connect to that global talent, if you want to streamline things and make things efficient, you have to eliminate exceptions. You have to simplify things. You have to cut back on bureaucratic exceptionalism like that, right? And
absolutely.
Reorganize things.
And we need to think of that. You need to think of it from a systems approach too, and recognize that, like, like our Canadian government, like, the public service like sector is enormous. Like, it is a lot of jobs. It is a lot of people, working jobs that, honestly, like, I think there's a lot of fat to trim, and that it's not that they're like, they're not necessarily like doing it the best, and it's not the best use of Canadians' heart, time, and true potential. So they're like, the economic value that they're providing for society, it's really actually like a loss. And we're supporting, or we have been supporting, like inefficiencies because it just leads to jobs. And it's just like, well, it creates jobs.
Sure. We've all been sitting through election campaigns of the last several decades. Where, oh, what's your plan? Jobs. What do you mean jobs? Oh, government jobs. We'll give them to you. Okay, yeah. No, like that's not how you deploy people properly, right? Like this is a long debate.
Exactly. Here's a rock.
Happening.
Like throw it over this fence. Go to the other side. Grab that rock. Put it on the other side of the fence all day long. We'll pay you to do that
people
job.
Support this.
Is that an effective job? Is that what we really want to be like? You know, inspiring Canadians to do. I mean, from my perspective, like you know, the CRA is just it can be so radically simplified to be hyper effective and efficient, and all the people within it can be released from the prison of CRA who work for it and be free to go pursue their own passions towards actually adding value and you know and transitioning. And you know, and if we look at the long-term like value of transitioning people into like true value generators, as opposed to like, you know, like I don't want to call them parasites. They're not parasites individually, but they're like economically at a macro sense, they're just costing the system. They're not providing any value to it. So if we can transition them out of there, you know, you might need to subsidize that transition a little bit and encourage, like, you know, have challenges to getting people out of the government, like recognizing you don't need to be doing this anymore, and let's look at systems. I mean, I look at the Treasury Board.
People have been saying this for decades, and lots of the stuff you're saying, you're definitely right. But why do people keep supporting it? Why do people keep voting for this idea of jobs? Like, for one, you have a system which doesn't provide them with any real incentive not to do that, right? Like, there's no other proposal. Like, the thing you're talking about, to lots of people, it sounds like, oh, you're going to fire people and they'll lose their jobs. No, it's not that. First off, lots of these jobs are better because the private sector jobs have been limited by lots of laws that restrict them, right? Like, the same thing that drives the people to work for the government sector and then create things that make the private sector worse is one reason why people move to the government sector, because it's better for them, right? Like, people aren't stupid when they pick jobs. Lots of people pick jobs through the government because they're using their brains and they're picking a place that pays you better, offers pension, offers all kinds of benefits. Maybe this is better for you. The answer is yes for tons of people, right? Lots of people love public sector jobs. And in lots of people's communities, these jobs pay enormously better than private sector. And these jobs are great. So you have to be proposing something that's better than that. And because people have been told for years and years and years about the way that Canada works, and they've grown up in it and they've seen it, and it seems to work, right? Like, until there's some huge economic crisis that, you know, results in mass layoffs or something, like, it'll keep dragging along, but it drags down growth overall and results in everyone being poorer. And there's a different world.
And it feels like
everyone's
right now,
much richer.
And it feels like right now we're like it like my gut feeling right now is, you know, our next major challenge is going to be inflation. And I think we're seeing that all around. And, you know, jobs and salaries aren't
Houses
keeping
up 30-40%.
Exactly. Right? You know, it's on. The average Canadian is not going to be able to afford a house if the status quo continues.
I took the GO train a few months ago, and I saw a woman get out of a tent with hairspray and like spray her hair there in Southern Ontario, where there didn't used to be tent encampments by the side of the train tracks, right? Like, my wife saw somebody huffing some sort of like can of something, like inhaling it on the subway. I've seen people like shooting up heroin. I never saw that before in Toronto, right? Did those things exist? Sure. But like, objectively, they've gotten worse. And housing crisis, all of these things, they're real. They're huge problems in people's lives. But people don't see that there's a way out of it, because there's no like alternative ideology. There's no single simple explanation. And especially when you've been subjected to your entire life hearing how great the government is, right? It's very hard for people to connect these dots and to see that like the things you experience, like homelessness and stuff, that actually those problems are substantially created by the government. Like, sure, there's a degree of global economy and stuff, but the government of Canada, provincial, federal, municipal, controls a huge amount of the economy. And smart people over a long time have built up this crazy system that's resulting in terrible hardships for people, right? And people don't see what could there be otherwise, right? Like, here, maybe to go in a different direction with your example there about government workers, because it's easy to focus on individuals, right? And when people hear like trim the fat, you mean it at an abstract level. People hear that as like an attack on themselves. So I'll give you a totally different one, right? There's this professor in the States who wrote a long blog post about how great the government is, basically. And one of his examples was the James Webb Telescope, where he said, and look, no one could have built this telescope privately, right? Only the government could do something so great. And look what we can all do when we do this together. But I think this is a really funny example because the same examples were used in like the 1800s in like Bastiat's essays and other writers. Who would want a telescope? In America, if you really went and asked people, would you like more food? Would you like shoes? Would you like a discount on your rent? Or do you want to buy a huge telescope that we're going to take photos of the universe with? Like, okay, yeah, but what do I get out of the telescope later? Does it help me? We'll find out more about the universe. Okay, yeah, but why would I put money towards this? Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. We're taking your money, okay? Just shut up about that. It doesn't matter. We're building the telescope, okay? And here's this guy saying, look how great this telescope is. But no, honestly, like the telescope's not good for most people. And if you went and collected money for it, almost no one would want to pay for a telescope, really. And the people who want a telescope can pay for it. But
right, and like back in the
how
day,
things work
like
writ large, right?
Whenever that kind of took place too, like, you know, raising money for a telescope would have been kind of a challenge. But now in today's interconnected planet, as like, you know, if we want to build a planetary telescope, then like, you know, it's a kind of an opt-in thing. If you're really into telescopes,
there are private satellites. Yeah, they exist.
Like, you know, you'll get it. Like, you know, go, like, you know, support that. But again, you don't need, you know, it's kind of like this testing thing right now. It's like this ordering $2.5 billion worth of tests. It's like, if you really want the test, like you can go buy it. And it's like, you know, there's just no, like, as Canadians, like, what are you on, $2.5 billion? Like, where else can that be? Where else can that money be used? And it's like, you know, all of a sudden it just seems like they've become drunk on free money, the idea of free money. No, it's not free. All Canadians are paying for it. All those people who are working good corporate jobs.
Actually, like, you know, future Canadians will pay for lots of it. Sure, well, lots of inflation and stuff, but
right. I mean, you're
will be paid by someone
now,
else.
But it's well, I mean, it's just this, like, you know, this debt idea that's being, like, you know, parked for future generations. And ultimately the solution to debt is just print more money and just keep it going inevitably. Just keep it going.
You know, it's not a solution though, right? Like, the things you're talking about are things lots of people talk about, and people say, yeah, but it works. Yeah, okay, maybe you can keep chugging along, but people are ignoring the tremendous cost of the system, both in terms of wasted potential of people, crazy environmental damage, like a ruined atmosphere, all of these things that go along with this. Pick your problems, right? There's lots of them. This isn't utopia.
Absolutely.
But people need to start thinking about this, right? What's the next system? If the current one isn't working well, and you don't think this is the end of history, and what we have in Canada is the 100% best government, because it's not. Like, other countries exist, I've been there, they do other things better. Like, we're not 100% in every category. And in fact, in many categories, Canada's falling in international rankings. Like, you can only keep your inertia going for so long and say we're the best before reports come out on different angles. And you're like, well, you know, we're not the best on that. Like, maybe.
No, and I think, like, you know, in the last
but it's
year,
possible.
The global perception of Canada too has greatly shifted. Like, you know,
and rightly so.
And rightly so. And, you know,
we can do better, way better.
We can do better.
The things you're talking about.
So
this is a better future.
Let's shift. Let me ask you a question. Like, in your mind, like, describe to me, what is a DAO? A DAO.
Same thing earlier about unregistered associations. Just people get together and go and do something. That's a DAO. They do it on the internet. They generally do it with crypto. And usually the idea is that at least key decisions are made through votes. So a type of stakeholder democracy for undertaking activities. And very much like unregistered associations, but on the internet. And many of them are not based on face-to-face contact, because those things exist. They've existed since time immemorial, right? People just team up and do something. So it's people team up and do something on the internet, often using cryptocurrency for money, but that's not an essential aspect of it. It's just that cryptocurrency works the best for doing these kinds of things. if our digital money system was upgraded, it could also do that. It's not, DAOs aren't particularly based on crypto. They've just happened to have emerged in the last few years based around crypto, because it lets you have people team up and move money together. And because of anti-money laundering laws and other kinds of things, banks have made it more difficult to do stuff. There's limitations on the money system. And so people just kind of threw that to the side and said, look here, we may not find crypto to be the most convenient, but it lets us do what we're trying to do here as a shared organization.
And
is that a fair,
that's
explanation?
That's a fantastic explanation. Let me try and like just unpack that, or just give a little bit of a playback. So it's a governance system, meaning it's a way for people to make decisions together, or for organizations to make decisions together. But it's also in like it's an organization system that's, as you said, on the internet, and they're kind of codified, so they're programmable. So you can put into them the conditions. And sometimes the DAO kind of stands for decentralized autonomous organization, and people think that means that it's like it's a robotic thing, it'll just run by itself. But at the core, it's run by humans, and they're designed in a way that humans are the ones that can that have the input that directs the guidance of them. So you can create DAOs for a whole myriad of different industries or groups or of stakeholders that you want to come together to, and it's basically a governance platform for making decisions, which is very much the same, like, in concept of why we have government and government systems, like in purpose. But now it's a digital kind of internet layer.
Academics dispute that about the purpose of government. That's one
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, we can have a like that's separate.
I think these things are even better than that. They're what you're talking about earlier. They're people without that abstraction, right? Like without people being able to debate it. Like it's real people doing something they want to do together.
Absolutely. And I think, like, right now we're seeing a lot of energy within Canada, recognizing that, look, the system is broken. These guys aren't listening to us. They don't represent us, but they're speaking for us. They're spending for us. Like, does this make sense any longer? And we're focusing a lot on the negative and the challenges. But again, we don't understand the challenges. Let's look to the opportunities. Let's unify and unite underneath a desire and a shared purpose towards having an abundant and prosperous Canada. I believe that, like, we like the limiting factors and all the issues and the systemic kind of toxicity and loopholes and regulations and laws and exceptions, as you put it, like, it's just holding back Canada and Canadians in general from prosperity. Like, one of the things my brother campaigned hard on was like, we need a strong middle class, which speaks towards just classism in general, but it also encourages this mindset and you want to be part of this middle class where it's like, why don't you use the message? We want prosperous and abundant Canadians across the map. You want people to live full lives, happy lives, free lives, and not be not need to identify with this one kind of sector to be, strong within. Let's look at what are the greatest hindrances on individual Canadians' lives, and let's address those. And let's let's reset the conditions. From my perspective, I think spring should be a time of celebration, as it has been for eons. And so let's remove this weird reporting thing where you give away a bunch of your earned money, and you're signing off on something. That's my personal beliefs on that we can, if we can fix the tax system, and it's going to require the Canadians to stand up for freedom and to take these chains off and understand that we can do this by not and the roads are still going to get worked on, hospitals are still going to run. It's let's just fix and address some of the systemic challenges that are holding us back and limiting everybody.
I'd like to see the end to slogans like that, like, for the middle class or something, where people don't treat things as slogans, but as real proposals and the opportunity to really be a part of that, right? What does that mean? Like, it's not
Indeed.
something you snap your fingers and do. Like, these things require like cultural change, institution change, government change, so many things, right? Like, you've got to have
an
plan there.
incentive too, an incentive. It's like, how can we incentivize Canadians to participate in making Canada like, a prosperous, abundant nation? And like, right now, I mean, I'll come back to that idea of a bounty model towards like, addressing like, we really want to like, we understand the way that things are right now, but like understand where we want to go, and like honestly looking like industry by industry, because you have brilliant innovators across the map working, and also we have a lot of like, existing private sector that also knows that things are being done, not like, can be done in a better way. So like, let's embrace innovation, to challenge that. And we've seen like, the Canadian government,
Not even a thing you have to do. People just do. People want that. They love it. Look, when people launch new great products, they just do it. iPhones, great, super. You don't need a law to force people to use iPhones because they're way better and everyone buys them, right? Like, innovation is the natural thing. Everybody wants to do that. It's business is the natural thing too, right? Like, these huge numbers of laws, like, look, it's my job. Like, I make lots of money off of helping people with this. A lot of that shouldn't exist. Like, you shouldn't need to have lawyers, like people who can figure out these arcane things for so many rules, right? Like, great for lawyers. Is this a good system, right? Like, here, like a good example of this, like, took a train last summer, and this teacher my wife knows, who was, in his 60s, he's near retirement. Yeah, out of nowhere, he didn't listen to you. I don't know, maybe he did actually, but it's like, oh, there's just so many rules. There's so much paperwork and bureaucracies. Like, my whole life, there's just been more and more of it. And this is just some regular guy musing about this, right? And lots of people feel this. I feel this. I help people with this. I get paid to do it. And I feel like this. Like, wow, so many rules. Way too many rules. This stuff is depressing. It causes people to give up. When people see all this red tape and paperwork and stuff, they don't think, wow, so exciting.
No.
Think,
let me go like, do that. Like, it's like, they got a great idea, they got a great project, they want to get going, then they can run into some bureaucracy and it just deflates everything. And it's like, can't do that. I'm gonna.
Lots of these things have sensible principles behind them, and people have good motivation in coming up with these things, right? They like see some problem happen, and they're like, well, how can we make a rule to prevent that problem? Because that's the training people have, right? It's the thinking of lawyers, it's the feelings of policy people, all of these things. They exist within the system where that makes sense to them. And not many people have training in a different way of thinking. I don't, but I recognize that you don't have training in society. You don't have training in how 38 million people are going to think and react and feel about that, right? And is your solution better? It's almost never the case that laws are actually empirically sourced. The laws are not created by people looking at data and developing an ideal solution based on that. They're almost always like just some guy's opinion, or if you're lucky, some woman's opinion on it, right? But usually guys, for one. Historically, there's another problem. Lots of these things, they're people just coming up with ideas, and they're like, well, I'm the boss, so I get to make the rules, and here's what I think would solve that problem. It's so rare that I see government rules come with any explanation. Why did you pick this rule instead of the other rules used in other countries? That's a really good question, right? You can't just make something up in isolation.
Let's bring that back. Let's bring that back to like, this future ideal outcome kind of DAO-based governance model system. So
yeah, you skip that entirely, right? You bring it down to people. You have 20 different organizations, all pursue different things. See which one works. See what's the best way to do that.
And you enable like, people and individuals and entrepreneurs and innovators to submit to kind of like, to submit proposals and like provide reasoning and have like qualified discussion on things. Because at the end of the day, if the DAO has a treasury that can fund initiatives, then, it's up to like, there should be a qualified debate and, and a vote on it, as to whether that initiative, gets funded,
you can already do this,
for example.
people are doing this. There's tons of DAOs. Some of these things are more difficult because of legal rules, but these things exist for good reasons too, and you need to give that some thought as well, right? And
well, and this is part, and this is part of the whole generation of this. Like, is it, yeah, do we know exactly what it looks like? No. Like, you know, is there lots of consideration? Yes. Are there pros to it? Yes. Are there cons to it? Yes. And like, you know, and evaluating that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, give people the freedom to do that and see what they do. Don't make rules for DAOs, but rather look at general rules that are restricting people from doing pro-social activities, right? Like you're thinking about tax. I think people will hear that and think like, oh no, taxes are good. They pay for our roads, right? Like what would we do without that? I mean, first off, private roads exist in other countries and your CPP money goes to buying roads in other countries. So, I mean, I don't know about that. Not all these arguments are so solid. There are private hospitals. Anyway, let's set that aside. People say tax money goes to good things, right? So if you're going to still have those things, people say, well, don't we need to have all those taxes? But you can do taxes differently. And you can do taxes in a way that don't provide disincentives for people doing normal small scale activities, right? Like tons of people in Canada just pay no net tax. Do you really need to be taxing people so much on all these different activities? Do you need a million taxes for everything? Sales tax on every product where people are accounting for all of these things? Do you really need income tax on every dollar that people are making? Is this an efficient use of society's resources to try to count literally every transaction and figure out the net basis on that and collect it? Like people don't realize how immensely costly this is, and it discourages tons of people from starting businesses or starting nonprofit organizations too, right? They're thinking, if we accept money and we put it in my bank account for this, may I have to pay taxes maybe on this? And now I don't want to do this positive activity in my neighborhood because I might be worried about money somehow being a problem, right? Even if it's not. People are like, well, there might be a rule against that. Is there a rule that says I can do this? Since most Canadians don't have the real view, which is unless there's a law that says you can't do it, you can't. But lots of people instead have the opposite mentality. What's the rule that says I can do it? But
well, and then they think too, it's like, I need to hire a lawyer like yourself to go tell me, can I do this or not? Like, and it's like that those are funds that could be being used and resources and time that can be going towards actually, achieving that value that you're seeking out or making that different or making that social impact.
There are plenty of other tax structures. The current system in Canada is not ideal. It's arbitrary. It's been built over years and years. It doesn't even follow many of its own reports. There's been lots of commissions over the years at the federal level about how these things should be changed. And they include tax expenditures, which many people don't know about. There's so much to say about this, right? But simplifying this, people don't think that changing the tax system would help in social activities because they haven't really thought about how all of these things are actually connected, because none of these systems exist in isolation, right? They all build up together to form our current society.
And now as we move forward with the ability for experts and and people who are passionate about certain causes to be able to explain and for you to be able to listen to a real expert in a field is all there. So it's not like we need to just trust in a group that aren't experts at all making decisions on certain items. There's a better, more effective way to do that.
Yeah, and I think the first step isn't for people to pick some famous person or read some book and say, oh, that's what we should do for society, right? It's just to start thinking about this, right? Is the way we're doing things now the best? Like you can read in any newspaper, they'll tell you no. You can talk to anyone, they'll tell you no on whatever issues they have in mind, right? And then start thinking, okay, well, what kind of structural change could make this better? And part of my thinking on this really does come from people I've worked for in the cryptocurrency industry, where these people have actually asked these kinds of questions. They don't just take it for granted. They say, wait, hold on a second, stop. Like, I know you're giving me the normal answer here, but explain to me. Go back several steps, right? Where did this come from? What's the real structure of this? Is this a real rule? Is this the best rule? What are some alternatives? That kind of thinking, I think, should really be encouraged. And that's the first step for people, because everyone has something to contribute to this. Everyone has their own ideas.
it's critical thinking. It's like, understanding that there's many layers towards this. And, I feel like, sometimes you get so far down a path that you forget the original intention or the purpose of it. And we really need to like reflect on intention and purpose of, why we do certain things in this way, and ask, is, there a better way that we can do this? And, put out, like, open the floor for
how important
alternatives.
people are. People are so important, and you get lip service at the political level to this, but no one is doing anything about the people camping in parks. Instead, they take bulldozers and a police and stuff to them, right? Like, nobody's thinking of this. Instead, they say, oh, well, that's the law, or that's the structure of this, right? And not thinking.
You take $2.5 billion, for example, and you put that into a request fund that is governed by, like, let's say a council of Canadians, where any homeless person, or in Canada, or someone who's in a tough spot, can actually make a request for, like, if what they need help with. Because I feel like our welfare system in Canada is like a one size fits all. It's, here's a blanket check for you. Like, CERB is a great example, just giving money to everybody, like people who don't need it, companies that don't need it. Like, they're just getting it. And it's like, but there's no ability.
Okay, years ago, I worked for the welfare system in Ontario. Actually, disability is way larger than welfare, and most of those people really do need it. But this other stuff you're talking about, businesses, that's what I was talking about, tax expenditures. Well, these things are huge.
Indeed. And the point that I was trying to get at was, like, instead of just blanket distributions, like with a fixed arbitrary number, like, is there not a way that we can enable, like, a request-based system where if people need help, they can, like, actually request it, and without a ton of bureaucracy or a ton of, like, without going through Ontario, 25 people.
There's an emergency relief system. It's not that good. It's only 1 month's worth of welfare, but it actually does kind of work like what you just said. It's just not very well publicized.
It's not very well publicized.
But way better than this. Eliminate the need for transfers. Canadians aren't living in homes and doing all these things because somebody transferred money to them. It's because of their own initiative and because of businesses and all the things people are doing, right? Like, it's crazy to have homeless people. It's so crazy due to zoning laws and all of these things that have caused this. There's no reason for it. This is one of the wealthiest societies that's ever existed in the history of the world, with some of the most educated people and amazing solutions. We shouldn't have these problems. These problems are signs of failures. And it's not about, like, how to redistribute the money between them, right? It's how to eliminate these things that are causing that failure. How do you make those people so it's not just giving a little bit more money on it, right? Like, how do you make it so they actually have a home? How do you make it so they have a job? Why is that not happening? Right?
And that is a large kind of, like, question and discussion in and of itself that needs to take place at, like, a critical thinking level of, like, understanding, like, how can we, like, really, like, fix this, or, like, what are different people's proposals? Ideas,
and they're not the way things are currently done. Like, there's a book, Welcome Homeless, by a guy in Texas who built a small little village, basically. It's an amazing story, super successful. They've housed tons of people. And the book, great story, great guy, not that well written, full of lots of scripture, as ghostwriter. This is not going to win any writing awards, but an amazing real person. You can go there and see it. I've never been, but it totally exists. Fascinating ideas. And he talks in the book about his own journey from starting to help people to actually engaging with them and understanding why they have these problems. And then it eventually led to this several hundred home community that he built. And one of the amazing things that he talks about is how he lives there. So do the other people who do this. Because he said, how could I live in my house in the suburbs and say that this is good enough for these people and that they should do that? But I'm not a part of this too. And that community is actually what people are lacking. And that's the focus of what they built. And that's why he says why the government systems can never work. It wouldn't matter how much money you threw at them because the approach is wrong. And I'm not an expert at homelessness. Like, I'm bringing these issues up only because I think that people don't think enough about these structures in terms of actual society, right? They think in terms of like a technocratic question, like how can we create this rule that's better, and not, yeah, but have you thought about what happens when you make too many rules, right? And have you thought about what this does for people who are bad at navigating rules? I'm really good at navigating rules. People pay me to do that. Like I could read them. Give me those 50-page contracts. I will pay attention. I'll read the whole thing, red line it. I can figure out the bureaucracy. I can figure out the forms. I won't like it, but there are people who can do this. It's not very fair to have a society built around that, though, because it shifts things too much to the people who are good at navigating rules and not enough to the people who do have good ideas and want to do things, right? And I totally understand the reasons for these things, but what you're saying is inspiring, right? Like what people need to do is start reevaluating this. Should we really be in a society with ever escalating rules and focus more and more on the people who can navigate rules, right? Like at some point, is that today? I don't know. You'd probably say it was yesterday. I'd probably say today. Maybe somebody else is going to say tomorrow. But at some point, you go too far on that, and you need to reevaluate that.
Right, and it feels like at this moment we are at, there is, something is happening. Something, I feel like we are in, like, I said it before, that we're in an age shift right now. We're going from like the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Some say we're going from a Bronze Age into a Golden Age. I like to believe that. I'm an optimist. And I think that, we can't bring like these broken systems are not meant for this new age. We need to look, we're not playing Monopoly any longer. We're playing a collaborative game.
And avoid getting sucked into the Monopoly. There's a ton of people pushing that game. It's a bad idea, right? And it seems tempting. It's emotionally laden, has simple messages with propaganda. It's got all these things, right? People love it. You just watch them dive into it. There's a whole social network for that, Twitter, right? This stuff is not where things need to go. It's not optimistic. And it's not good, ultimately, for the country to get bogged down in that, right?
And so, like, on that note, a lot of like individuals, need to kind of go through their own journeys to reflect on, what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, what it means to be a person, what it means to be a member of, a community, of a society, and think critically about, is this existing, does Monopoly serve me? Do I really want to play this game? Am I, because I've believed this up to now, does this mean I must believe this going forward? Or am I capable of negative entropy, of changing, of modifying my path? Also, if you have been, and if if you reflect and see that, some of the stuff I've done have really been contributing to the Monopoly game and making things worse and facilitating a divided and like identity driven kind of society, and you don't want to do that anymore, and you want to, start ascending in yourself, forgive yourself. Like, it's so important. You gotta have self-compassion. Like, forgive yourself. It's okay. Like, everybody makes mistakes. I made mistakes. I've done bad things. I'm not proud of them, but I'm not like every night thinking about them and like punishing myself and living in grief and disbelief about, past actions. Instead, I focus forward on, and I, or personally, one of the core, pieces of literature that has really impacted my life in the way that I speak and the way that I kind of communicate and live is called the Four Agreements. And it's, they're four really simple agreements, try to live your life by, if you choose to. And it's like, be impeccable with your words. Like, understand that your words are really powerful. Like, you can cast white magic or black magic with what you say. And the second one is, don't make assumptions. So other people's, based on their words, they create beliefs. And if you listen to some other person's words and it makes an assumption about the way that things are, or it can really impact, your life. And the third is, don't take things personally. and like, you know, I've been dealing like with this a lot because there's negative things that people say to you, but there's also positive things that say to you. And like, you know, in the last 48 hours, I mean, I've been like flooded with so many messages of support and love that, you know, that could like, you know, fuel an ego. And I'm trying to like just not take that personally, and like, you know, just maintain, you know, the course, just be impeccable with the words. And then the fourth thing is always do your best. Like in everything you do, just do your best, because if you're doing your best, like you can't have any regrets. So, you know, those are like, you know, the 4 agreements. It's written by a guy named I forget his name right now, but 4 agreements. Anyways, that's, you know, that's my little like personal like development. It's a short book. It's an easy read, and it's really powerful.
This is good stuff. This is a great chat. Always good talking to you, Kyle.
Yeah, this has been a really great chat. Addison, thank you so much. Let's wrap it here, and you know, let's just continue doing our best every single day, and let's like, you know, continue to think about you know, and beyond thinking too, let's start creating and like, you know, figuring out, you know, what are those moves that we can start making towards realizing this. And, you know, if anybody like reaches this level, like, you know, I just launched a Patreon channel to enable like, you know, support of like myself and my mission towards freedom and liberty. And this is a way that, you know, for as little as $1 a month, you can be part of, you know, I don't know, be an angel in my life so that I can, you know, try to be an angel in others. And so like that is a community where I'll be putting this video, and, you know, we'll be making updates there, and let's engage in a discussion. Let's kind of build communities, connect with others, like, you know, never be afraid to share your truths. Because, you know, this is we have a great opportunity right now in front of us. You know, out of the darkness, the light will shine, and will shine very, very strongly.
Nice note to end on. Thanks, Cal. I really appreciate chatting with you today.
I really appreciate you, Addison.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you, brother. Okay, bye for now.